Right now, the Democrat Party has a lot of problems on their hand. They just came off of a horrible election loss to President Donald Trump in November of 2024. They just came off of a disastrous Biden administration over the last 4 years, and now they are locked out of power. They have no power in Washington, D.C. Republicans control the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency. Democrats really have no power as of right now. And there was one Democrat who I believe, and I've been upfront about this since day one. I lean center right. I'm here to, when Trump does something I really like, I'm all about it. When he does something I don't like, I'm not about it at all. And I'm going to be booing as loud as you are. But the reality is that Democrats have a problem. And although I don't really have a vested interest in seeing the Democrat Party necessarily fix some of these issues, I do think it'll be better that no matter who is in control of the presidency or who is in Congress, you have more people promoting common sense. I think that's a big thing. You want people to promote common sense. And meanwhile, Democrats have just suffered a major disaster over the last 6, 8, 9 months. There's one Democrat who really is a shining light forward for the party, and that is the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear. Andy Beshear believes that he has a message and he has a way forward for Democrats so they can win elections again. This is kind of a watered down version of the full New York Times opinion piece that he wrote. But Andy Beshear really, in February, after the presidential election, exactly 1 month after Donald Trump was inaugurated, he gave some of the most effective policy talk that we've heard from a Democrat. Talking about how Democrats need to talk to people as they're real human beings. It was really funny. I was listening to a podcast that Chuck Todd did, I believe this is yesterday or 2 days ago now, talking about how in 2016, when Hillary Clinton got the nomination, she was going around saying, I'm going to be a president for women. I'm going to be a president for Black Americans, for white Americans, for Latino Americans, for Asian Americans, for Pacific Islander Americans, for LGBTQ Americans. All the identity boxes checked. And it was very funny because one of Chuck Todd's, the people that he had on his podcast, said, well, she didn't ask for my vote. I'm a young, white, straight male. And she didn't ask for my vote. And that really, really percolated in the 2024 election when you saw young voters shift to Donald Trump by 6 or 7 percentage points. It was almost 7 percentage points that young voters under 30, whether they were men, women, shifted to Donald Trump by 7 percentage points. Young men, it was even higher. It was close to like 12 points. You saw Latinos shift away from the Democrat Party. They were supporting Democrats over 60% in 2020. In 2024, Democrats got less than 50% of Latino support. And Andy Beshear believes it's because what he calls sanitized language and messaging. Talking about how you are using certain language that people don't feel like you're talking to them. They feel like you're talking in this bubble, in this vacuum that no one really understands. This kind of far off 1%er talk. Now, he cited a few instances like substance use disorder instead of addiction, or justice-involved populations instead of people who are in jail, incarcerated people. And it's hard for people to connect with people when they don't use the language that they use. We talk about different languages as in, Spanish, Italian, English. Okay, well, let's just talk about the actual language within inside of that language that you use. If you're using these far-off technical terms, it's going to be a big struggle to relate with everyday Americans, with working-class Americans who Democrats struggle very badly with. And you may ask why? Why should we trust what Andy Beshear has to say? Well, I'll show you 2 elections. I'm going to show you the 2023 gubernatorial election when Andy Beshear won the state of Kentucky. Won the state of Kentucky by 5 percentage points over a popular African-American attorney general from Kentucky. And yes, does Kentucky have a history of electing moderate Democrats? Yes, they do. But look at this. 5 percentage points you have Andy Beshear winning the election by. And not even 12 months later, Donald Trump wins the state by 30 points. 30 points. Look at this. Look at this map right here, the county. Kamala Harris wins 2 counties. Andy Beshear won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Over 24 counties he won here. 24 counties. Fast forward 12 months, Kamala Harris barely wins 2. And these aren't like huge victories. It's like 18 points and 16 points in a state when stuff is going to Trump by 60 points, 30 points, 60 points, 50 points, 70 points, 80 points, 75 points. All over the map. Andy Beshear has the best messaging for how the Democrats can move forward. And he wants Democrats to focus on the core issues that matter to everyday Americans, emphasizing nonpartisan issues that will dominate voters' daily lives, like jobs, affordable health care, education, infrastructure, public safety. He argues in this op-ed that Democrats must prioritize these core issues if they want to rebuild trust with voters, rather than getting bogged down with divisive, national, cultural, ideological debates. He talks about in this article how families that are struggling with high prescription costs or basic expenses are really less concerned about what Donald Trump has to say, whether he called Kamala Harris black or Indian, or said that people in Ohio, in Springfield, Ohio, are eating dogs. They don't care about that when they're focused on the cost of prescription drugs. And he suggests that Democrats, because of this loss in 2024, suggests that there is a huge disconnect with working class and rural voters. Really a core constituency of Beshear's, I would say, election. He said that there was universal concern about economic security, health care, that supersedes the parties, that both parties have serious appeal with. And in a broad electorate, especially in a swing state, or in a red-leaning state, this bodes very well with voters in the state. And in Kentucky, Beshear, he expanded Medicaid to include vision coverage, hearing coverage, dental coverage, and capped insulin costs. And actually delivered, whether you like it or not, he was actually able to deliver measurable benefits for voters, regardless of their party affiliation. And he also continues on, kind of gives a deeper dive, talking about really the sanitized language that they use. They use a lot of sanitized language, but really talks about how his empathetic daily briefings during the COVID pandemic built a personal connection with a lot of people from Kentucky, making his really, the way he can communicate with an average person very, very visible. And Beshear's ability to win in 3 statewide elections, not only as the governor, but once as the attorney general in a Republican-dominated state, demonstrates that he seriously has crossover appeal. He defeated 2 Trump-endorsed candidates, including Matt Bevin in 2019 and Daniel Cameron in 2023, focusing on local issues and avoiding these national traps, these partisan traps. And you may ask, why does it matter? It matters because Democrats are struggling. Democrats struggle in red states, in swing states, especially in the Midwest and the South. In these victories, in a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat since what? Clinton in 92, 96? 96 was the last time Kentucky voted for a Democrat. Look at 96. Go back to Bill Clinton. Look at all of these states that are voting for a Democrat. Florida, Louisiana by 12 points. Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Ohio, West Virginia. You were seeing, and then it's kind of weird. Virginia voted for Bob Dole. Huh, interesting. But look at 92. Look at this election here in 92. Clinton wins Georgia. He wins Montana. He wins New Mexico, Colorado. He wins Nevada. He won huge, huge elections here. Huge elections. And it's really getting back to that Southern Democrat strategy that they had. And how you can appeal to conservative-leaning voters without completely abandoning their progressive values that they feel so strongly about. And I feel just the fact that Beshear won re-election simply by 5 points shows that it works. It works. and being able to balance your progressive values with also being pragmatic at the same time. Like, that is just a fact of the reality here. But I think there could be some limitations here. I think his overall messaging, is he the guy to lead the party forward? I don't know. But here's the reality. These are definitely concepts that National Democrats should take into play. They should implement these. Maybe if it's not Beshear at the top of the ticket, maybe he's he's number 2 on the ticket. Maybe he's leading in some other way, shape, or form. But these ideas are ideas that will get Democrats back into power. Because I think there could be some limitations for Beshear, especially considering that Kentucky is a culturally conservative state with a history of elected moderate Democrats. And that may not translate to, really appeal to the progressive base in Democrat primaries like New Hampshire, like California, like Illinois. I think he will really struggle in a national primary, or I think he would do very well in a national election. I think he would really struggle in a Democrat primary. And there's a lot of things that he doesn't have to worry about right now. Like you said, the partisan nature of the national politics. He doesn't have to deal with ideas of tariffs or immigration necessarily. Those are things that are dealt with on the federal level. And you don't really have to deal with as a governor of a red state in middle America. But I do think his pragmatic approach would really bring people together it's a double-edged sword. It would bring voters together in a general election, but I think it would alienate progressives who want a bolder stance on certain issues like climate change, like systematic racism, which, to be honest with you, systematic racism really ended 60 years ago, if we're being 100% honest. And really, his reluctance to directly criticize Donald Trump, to directly go after him, because he doesn't want to alienate core voters. He needs those voters. When you're winning in Kentucky, you're winning what? Okay, yes, 700,000 people, and then let's go to the actual election in Kentucky where you had what? You had almost double. You almost had 1.4 million people vote for Donald Trump in Kentucky. Obviously, there's a big difference between an off-cycle election and a presidential election. There's a big difference in the electorate that turns out there. But ultimately, it's a double-edged sword that you deal with him. And he also has a low national profile. Now, has he been trying to make efforts through certain podcasts, donor events to kind of break through into the national media environment? Something to be a little more flashier, like someone like a Gavin Newsom is in the Democrat Party, but that's difficult. And it's a reality that Beshear is really unrecognizable by a lot of people who are not really focused on politics like I am. He's very much unrecognizable. Like, let's be honest about this. And he would really need to work to build a national brand if that's something that he wanted to do. So, just to kind of wrap things up, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, could it help in a general election? But you got to win a primary first. But the idea of focusing on core issues, speaking authentically with people, governing in a pragmatic way, the way that Bill Clinton did in his last 6 years as president, and really rejecting divisive politics, is a seriously compelling strategy for Democrats to reconnect with voters, particularly in red states, swing states, working class voters, younger voters, voters of color. Donald Trump won over 3-1 voters of color in the 2024 election. That's almost unheard of. This was the most diverse and least white election that we've seen in decades. And just look at what Beshear was able to do in Kentucky. And yes, are there some nuances? Are there some things, some things that would not translate to a national level? Yes, but there are many things that could translate to a national level. 100%, that does exist. But let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think his policy prescriptions, do you think his prescription for the Democrats moving forward is realistic? Do you think Democrats can win on that message, or do you think he's wrong? Do you think Democrats should go as far to the left as possible? As always, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future, and folks, we will catch you next time.